Nitya. Good morning.
Hi, Karthik. Good evening.
Good morning. All right. So thanks for joining today. Let's get started for today's class. So today we are in day 37. We are in started learning about multithreading already. So we are in day 37, where we are going to learn about what will happen if I try to overload the run method, and what will happen if I try to override the start method, and how to restart a thread in Java. Okay, these are the three topics which we are going to talk about today, and we are going to learn about first theoretically and then going by coding. Alright. So when I say overloading of run method, we know that yesterday we have learned about what is thread, what is process, what is multiprocess, what is multithreading, and how to make a multi-threaded environment, right? Which means like how you can make your class a threaded environment or threaded class. So there are two ways that we can implement thread, right? We can define a thread. One way is to implement runnable interface. The other way is to extend your thread class, right? Whatever we do, we have to override the run method, which is nothing but a job of a thread, right? That's how we decided yesterday. Now we are going to learn about how to overload run method, or what will happen if I try to overload run method. Okay. So whenever I say overloading, we know in Java, overloading is nothing but we are having the same method but with a different number of arguments, and we try to implement some different methodologies in it, right? And if you have, let's say here, right, say here in your class you are extending thread class, right? And then you are having run method, and if you override with this another run method with some other number of arguments are different between this one, then it is nothing but overloading, method overloading, right? And what will happen, we are going to see that. So as always, I want to start by going through the coding ways to give a proof of concept. Whatever we are learning, we want to understand in detail. So let's get started with new class called overloading run method in demo. All right. So here what we're trying to do. First of all, we want to know how real program works, right? So what we can do, I can simply say class. Let's say I can say overloading run, right? So here I want to, either way I can do it. I can go by, let's say, extending thread class within sections thread class, right? So which means I'm making this class as a threaded class, right? So here what I should do, I have to go for public void run method. So this is nothing but job of a thread, right? So whenever the thread has been created, it is going to execute job of a thread, right? So here I'm going to say, simply saying sysout, let's say inside run method. Also I want to see who is actually executing this particular thread or this line. So what I can do here is I can simply say sysout executed by, I can simply say thread dot current thread dot get name. Now to get the current thread who is actually running this particular job, I can get by using thread dot current thread dot get name, right? So now how I can call this method, this class, by creating an object of this class, right? Let's say R is equal to new objects, right? And we have seen yesterday, whenever you are trying to execute a job of a thread, you should not call the run method directly. You should call the start method. If you want to know why we need to call start method, so only if you make a call to start method, what the start method does is it will first start the thread, and that thread will be registered to the job scheduler, and that job scheduler will look for this run method. Okay, that is how it works. So that is the reason we have to call start method. So r dot start. Alright. Now I want to see who is actually executing this piece of code here. by saying inside main method, right? And also I want to know who is actually running this particular piece of program, right? I can simply say main method executed by whatever the current thread name it is. Let us go and start writing the program. Execute the program. Control Shift O. Okay. All right. Now let me go and run the program. Okay. So inside main method, so which means first it executed this one, and then main method is executed by main thread, right? So which means like this has executed first, and then it went to here, like inside run method, and it has been executed by thread event 0. So which means like one thread has been created, isn't it? It's nothing but thread event 0. Now what we're trying to do here is we want to know if I can able to overload the run method. Method overloading is possible, right, in Java. So what I can simply do, I can make a copy of this particular method and make some, let's say, integer x. Okay, inside I can simply say overloaded run method, and also I can say overloaded run method is executed by, right? So to know who is actually executing this one. Okay, now I have overloaded this run method. Now I want to see how it works. Yeah, if you see here, still I'm calling the same start method. As I said earlier, start method always try to see if public void no argument run method is there or not. If it's there, it is going to execute it. So if you see here, it says like exit inside main method, which is nothing but this one, and then inside run method, which is nothing but this one, and then executed by thread event 0, nothing but this one, and then main method is executed by main. So which means this method was not even called, isn't it? Even I can run a number of times. You won't see output saying that inside overloaded method. Okay, so what is the theory is nothing but always start method calls no argument run method. That is what it means. Here I can simply say overloaded run method, but it won't be called by start method. Is it clear, Nitya? How to overload a run method and what will happen if you try to overload it, whether it will be called by the thread or not. Okay. So as we seen yesterday, like it will create a thread here, right? So by line number 6, you will have two threads, right? One thread will be main thread, the other one is like whatever it creates. Let's say thread event 0, right? And then this line number 8 and 9 will be executed by main thread. And once this particular job of a thread is completed, then the thread is no more. It will be like going to dead state. Okay. So if you see here, exactly I have demonstrated here, like whatever we have seen, this overloaded run method is not going to be get called at any time. So that is a theory what we're looking at. Okay. So these slides are showing the same thing. So let's say if I have a class, extends thread class, and I have a Java with thread is nothing but default no argument run method. And if you have something like some integer or whatever, however you want to overload this particular run method, you can do that. So what will happen is whenever you starting a thread, it will be executed only the default or no argument run method and your main thread. That's all. Okay. And let's say if I want to call directly t.run, what will happen? Instead of calling a start method, if I call t.run, what will happen? Nitya, any idea? Instead of
It
calling,
will execute the overloaded method.
sorry.
It will execute the second part of overloaded method, that overload run method.
Yeah, but actually, if I call r.run of something, let's say if I give some integer value, then it will come here because it is expecting run with some integer value, right? But if I simply call r.run, it will execute here. But the difference is that it won't start the thread. Okay, let me show you. Yeah, if you see here, r.run, we are directly calling. So where it comes, you see here, the control comes here, right? It's highlighting here, right? So the control comes here, and if you see, only the same main thread is executing this run method thread, this job. It didn't create thread even 0. You see the difference? If I call start method instead of run method, if I say start, what happens here? Executed by thread even 0, which means the thread has been started and that thread is responsible to execute this job. In our case, in this case, if I simply say r.run method, what happens is you are directly creating an object of this class and directly calling the method, run method. That's all. You are not even starting the thread. The only way that you can able to start a thread is by the help of start method. Yeah. If you see here, there is no thread even 0. So this piece of code is already is also executed by main thread only. There is no threads created other than main thread. And if I want to call this overloader method, I can simply say, let's say if I pass value 9, what will happen now? You see here, it is highlighted here like line number 26. So now if I call here, see inside overloaded method, or overloaded method is executed by main thread because it didn't start the thread. Is it clear with you now? Like the differences?
Yeah, yes, Karthik. I'm clear on this one.
Okay, the same thing I have put it here. Let's say if you call some value, then where it comes? Okay, it comes to this overloader method, but overloader method also will be executed by the same main thread. We didn't start the threads. That's what we need to understand. It is very, very important to understand this concept because when we go to the upcoming topics within multi-threaded, we will be simply seeing like one thread is talking to another thread and another thread is talking to multiple threads, and one thread has to wait for another thread, and one thread will call the join method. So if we go into advanced topic, we will be going through in that way of like starting a thread and then automatically calls the run method. So that like this is very, very basic now to understand the concept, the upcoming concepts. So that's why I'm trying to say that like better we have to see the differences when what will happen if we do different things here. All right. So now the second topic is overriding of start method. Okay. So what we are doing here is we are having two methods, right? One is run method, another is start method. So we are dealing with two things. One is what will happen if you overload run method. What will happen if you override start method? Okay. Let's go to that one and see how that works. So let me create a new class. Override start demo. All right. So what I'm trying to do here is I'll simply take this one and put it here, and I will simply say instead of overloading run, I'll simply say override start. Okay. So here I'm not actually overloading the run method. Instead of that, what I'm trying to do is I want to override start method. We know what do you mean by override in Java, right? So here also I'm going to call the same thing like this. So here I'm going to say override start, right? R equal to new override start off, then R dot start off. Okay. Now everything is okay. Now let me go and run this program. Right? It's very simple. There is no change in it, right? Like a skeleton. Okay. You see here inside main method, inside run method, main method has been executed by main thread, and inside this one is executed by like thread 0. Like even I can simply say this I can simply say child thread. So you will see the meaningful information out there. Yeah, child thread is executed by thread 0. Main method is executed by main thread, right? Because we are starting a thread. Now what we are learning here is when we want to override start method, what will happen? Okay. What do you mean by overriding? What do you mean by overriding? So here what happens? There is a thread class, right? This is the parent class, isn't it? So this parent class, so here, yeah. You see here, the parent class, thread class contains start method, isn't it? And that is where they have written the logic. Right? The algorithm has been written here. So as a developer, we don't need to write the logic, but internally they are doing this, right? So basically, this is how they are actually registering the thread and then they are starting it. Okay, start 0 is what they're going to start it. Okay, so here if you see here, start 0, that internally calls run method. Okay, so now we are going to see whenever you are trying to call run method, sorry, start method, it is going to call run method. Now, if you say r.start, right, instead of that, if I want to override the start method, what does it mean? Overriding concept comes in a picture whenever you are trying to override the logic in the child class, isn't it? So here parent class is nothing but thread. Child class is this class, right? My own class. Here if I say public void start, then what does it mean? Public void start method. What does it mean? You are actually overriding the start method in the child class. Is it clear now what you're trying to do here? Now I'm going to say the same thing here, saying that inside start method is executed by whatever thread it is. Now what I'm trying to do here is I'm going to call the same thing, right? r.start. So what it does, what it's supposed to do is it has to first call the start method of thread class, and that only it will call the run method, isn't it? But here what I'm trying to do here is if I want to call the start, it is going to call here because I have override already the start method here. So now what will happen? Yeah, you see here inside start method is executed by main thread. Why there is no thread created here? Because the thread will get started only if you call the start method of thread class. Okay, because the start method inside thread class only can able to start the thread and it will register that particular thread to the job scheduler, and then it will call run method, the default no argument run method. But if you simply call start method and you already have some method called start with the name of start, then it will just make object referencer is calling this particular start, this method. If you simply call here and if you have this method called start, it is going to call here. That is the reason it didn't create a thread. It didn't start the thread. Actually, thread has been instantiated, but it didn't start the thread. So if the thread is not started, then it of course it won't go and register with the job scheduler. Then it is not going to call the run method also. That is why this is not even executed here. You see the difference. Inside start method is executed by main thread. If the thread has been started, then it has to be thread event 0. But you see only one thread, which is nothing but main thread, right? So what will happen is whenever you try to override start method, the thread won't get created or started. Instead, it is just kind of a object reference. You're calling a method. That's all. You're creating an object of this class and just call this method. That's all. With the help of object dot method. That's all. So that is what it means, right? Whenever you say t dot start, right, it is going to call the here because you already have a start method here. Whatever is overloaded or overridden in the child class, that will take a precedence. Is that right? Now, if I want to call, even though I'm overriding here, if you want to call the start method of that class, how can I do that? In Java, we have learned something before with the help of super, right? What does it mean, super? Super means parent class, right? Parent class method is nothing but start. Now, if I run it, if I go and execute the program, you guys see here inside start method, okay, inside start method, and then inside run method. Wow, how it is calling this method? Because you are calling super.start, right? Super.start is nothing but you are calling the thread class start method, When the moment you call thread class start method, it is going to start the thread and that will register the thread, right? And then it internally calls run method. That is the reason you are seeing inside run method, and then you can see child thread is executed by thread-0. You see the differences what I'm writing here, right? Yeah, is it clear for you?
Yeah, yes, Karthik, I'm clear.
So exactly, I have taken a snapshot of this one. So you have a job of a thread, nothing but like run method, default no argument run method, and then whenever you are trying to call start method, like it's nothing but like you are actually starting it. So starting a thread means nothing but that call has to go to thread class start method. Okay, only then the thread will be started and it will be registered to the job scheduler, and then it will call the run method, which is nothing but no argument run method. Okay, so this is a typical use case. Now here what I'm trying to do in the slide number 13, I'm going to override the start method with the help of just public void start off. Then I'm putting some logic here. In this case, what will happen whenever you try to call t.start? So what will happen? You are directly calling the start method. That is why you see here inside override start method, and this has been written by executed by main thread, right? It didn't start the thread because you are already overriding the thread. So what we have to do here is we have to understand two things. Okay, for a thread we have two methods. One is start method and run method. And whenever you want to start a thread, you always have to call start method, but the implementation class or whatever the class you are having, that class should not have or overridden the start method. Okay, only then you will be able to see the thread has been started by the thread class start method, and then it will be registered to the job scheduler, and then it will internally calls run method. Okay, second point, if we try to overload the run method, what will happen is the default nature of start method will call only no argument run method. You can have a number of overloaded methods run method. Let's say run of int x, int x, run of int x comma character a, whatever you want. You can change the number of parameters. But thread class start method always refers to call the public void run no argument method. That's all. That is why we need to understand. Now we are going to get into third topic, which is nothing but restarting a thread in Java. So what do you mean by restarting a thread? So restarting is nothing but whenever you want to call or whenever you want to start the thread again, right? So how to do that? Okay. So now I'm going to create another class called restart thread demo, where I'm going to have a similar set of data here. Let's say I can simply have a class here. I can say restart thread. I just remove the demo. Which extends thread class, and let's say I have a job of a thread and then the run thread, right? I don't want to demonstrate the start method override, right? So I can simply remove it. Now what I need to do here, I need to call the start method, right? So I can simply write this piece of code where I need to call restart thread r is equal to new restart thread of then r dot start, isn't it? Right? It's a typical happy path. Let me go and run this code. Very good, right? So it is actually doing like inside main method, run method, and main thread method has been executed by main thread, and child thread is executed by thread 0. Here I can simply say not child thread, I can say run method. Run method is executed by thread 0. Alright. Now what I'm trying to do here is I want to restart the thread. What do you mean by restart? If I create a thread and if the thread has been started by the JVM, if it is already registered to the particular job scheduler, at the same time, if I try to restart the same thread, then we'll see what will happen. What does it mean? Again, I'm calling the same start method for the same thread, isn't it? This is nothing but restarting the same thread. So now we will see what happens. Yes. So you are getting an exception saying that illegal thread state exception. So in the upcoming classes, we are going to see what are the states of a thread, or what are the levels of, or whatever the life cycle of a thread, right? Where we will learn about like what will be the life cycle of that particular thread at a particular level. It will be new, running, runnable, data or whatnot, right? You will see it. But whenever you try to restart a particular thread, you are going to get an exception saying illegal thread state exception, which means thread state is not illegal, not legal. Okay, that is why you're getting illegal thread state exception. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is t dot start means if everything works fine. Again, you call t dot start, right? That is where you're getting an exception saying illegal thread state exception. That's all. So which means like you won't be able to restart a particular thread in Java. That's a proof. You will get a runtime exception saying illegal thread state exception. Is it clear, Nitya? That's all actually for today's class. I want to cover up these 3 topics first because
yes, Karthik, I'm clear on this topics.
Something like you have to digest and then you have to rethink it and then you have to execute, and you have to play around over there. Only then you will be able to correctly follow up on those items. That is why I'm going by only particular topic specifically for the particular day, so that you will get a time to complete or whatever we are talking about in the class, so that like you will be prepared for next class. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult to understand multithreading. So that is why I'm taking up only small topics for the day, so that you will be understanding in and out of multithreading. So we have seen about like 3 topics today: overloading of run method, overriding of start method, and restarting a particular thread. So restarting a thread is not possible in Java, and if you try to do it, it will give you like illegal thread state exception. But if you try to override a start method, what happens is whenever you try to override start method, then the control won't go to thread class start method. Instead, it will go to the direct class whichever you're trying to get an object, right? Just an object dot reference, object reference dot start method. So it won't start the thread. You will see that that particular thing also has been executed by main thread only. So which means there is not a multi-threaded environment. So first point what we have learned about is overloading of run method. So overloading means something but like method overloading means same method name with different number of arguments. So you have like no constructor or no argument run method, and you will have one more method called no run of some integer x, right? Int x, and you are trying to see whenever you are actually starting a thread, which method is getting called. By default, it will call only the no argument run method. That is why I'm saying like whenever you try to overload the run method, it simply ignores whatever the run method you're creating with some arguments, because JVM will always looks for whenever it calls the run start method, it is always look for run no argument run method. That's all, right? So I hope you understood the concept clearly, Nitya. But if you still have any questions, please reach out to me. And tomorrow we are going to talk about some of the other concepts. Let's say so we are going to talk about different constructors of a thread class and how to see or what is thread priorities and how to set the priority or how to get the priority. There are a lot of concepts within this. We are going to talk about only 2 concepts tomorrow, because I know it's very, very important to understand each and every dots. Only then you will be able to understand like the upcoming dots, right? The classes. So no worries. Like tomorrow we'll talk about or learn about these 2, and then we'll slowly go up to to complete this thread as well, thread sections in Java. All right. If there are any questions or anything in general if you want to talk about Java, then let me know. Otherwise, we can regroup tomorrow.
No, Karthik, no questions.
Thanks, Satya. Thanks for joining in. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Good night.